Hello, everybody. Well, my name is Gemma Jones. I work for Amazon as the EU Operations Military Recruitment Manager. I've been in this job for about 14 months after I left the Royal Navy after 11 years as a warfare officer. I'm going to go in a bit more detail into that later on a different slide, but I give a lot of thought as to what you might want to hear today, what might be useful information for you. And please do ask any questions if I'm not covering what you would like to know. But I thought it best to sort of look at these as my sort of top aims for the day, to sort of overview of the benefits of veteran hiring, but I'm not going to ram that down your throats, don't worry, and the realities of it, the challenges of it, and some of the practical side of it. I want to say first and foremost that I don't believe that companies should do veteran hiring out of any sort of corporate social responsibility. I very much believe that it is in the business benefit to look at the veteran talent pool, and not out of any sort of charitable notion, but that it is good for business. And that is definitely the approach we take at Amazon. And we recruit veterans because they make great managers, great people leaders, great and really great for the business, and to help grow the business. So this is what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to run through these over a variety of slides. But again, as I said, please jump in with any questions that you may have. As I only have 20 minutes, I'm going to try and pack in as much as possible. So let's get going. Right. So industry experience. This is a word that is thrown around quite a lot. And if I can be honest, it's the phrase I would like to burn to the ground. I think it can be quite short-sighted, if I'm being very blunt. I think industry experience and using this as a yard marker or a reason not to look at a candidate, or when you're talking about potential profiles, I think that this phrase doesn't do us any good. Why would we always want the same type of profile, the same experience? How is that going to be positive? Where is the diversity of thought or experience and other skills that people can bring to the table, even if they haven't got that industry experience? Okay, so then this is a phrase that the veterans come up against at every turn. And I myself resettled out of the military, as I said, only 14 months ago. And this is what I came up against as well: industry experience. And it is difficult then for veterans to figure out where they fit in the civilian world, because this is such a big statement, and that's pushed out by a lot of companies, recruiters, when they talk about veteran hiring or when they're looking at candidates. So we at Amazon, we don't, this isn't a blocker for us. Industry experience isn't a blocker for the roles that I hire for. And we have proof that it doesn't need to be a blocker. We have proof that without industry experience, people from the military can be exceptionally successful within business. I will concede some ground that there are specialized roles where the experience is very specific and required. I'm not going to make this a sort of sweeping statement, and I completely understand that there are some technical roles, some roles that really you need to have that very unique specialized skill set. But by and large, a lot of roles, the content of the job, the day-to-day of the job, can easily be taught or coached to somebody. Okay, and that is generally what we do in the roles that I hire military into. The roles are focused on the people management, the leadership skills, the thinking outside the box, the resilience, and the actual day-to-day job of how to do those operational roles within Amazon. We teach that. But we teach that not just to the military candidates, we teach that to every candidate that comes through the door. So whether they're coming from university or a different company, we teach those skills to them. So industry experience, this is one of a really interesting phrase that veterans come across. And then my next slide, I sort of just threw these together with a bunch of words that I thought represented what veterans can bring to the table. And I will also concede some ground that not every single person that is leaving the armed forces is an excellent, all-round, great candidate that you should definitely consider. There is a mix of good, bad, and average everywhere, and you certainly still get that in the military. But where you get a good military candidate, you get such a great all-round package in a candidate that you should definitely keep it in the back of your mind when you're reading CVs, when you're talking to your hiring managers, that these people, these skills that are developed over the course of 12, 13, 15, 20 years in the military, these can't be taught quickly. These have been embedded in people over a long, challenging career where they've learned leadership skills in challenging environments, where they've had to manage multiple stakeholders across multiple elements of the military, civilian organizations as well, communication skills, they're out of the box thinking, they're open to new ideas, they bring a different way of thinking, a different approach. And they may not have that industry experience, but they, in their military careers, will have experienced a vast amount of different roles and can demonstrate their ability to pretty much turn their hand to anything. And good quality military candidates are worth their weight in gold, if I can be honest. We've been in the military recruitment sort of game, I guess, in Amazon for about actively probably about 7 or 8 years, and now within the UK we have regional directors, general managers of multiple fulfillment centers, country leaders. Very soon we'll have vice presidents. We've got ops managers, senior ops managers. I said once that you can't walk into a fulfillment center without sort of tripping over at least half a dozen veterans. And my colleague said that in his fulfillment center they've actually got about 15 or 16 veterans in sort of managerial positions. So we have had great success with it, and we continue to have great success with it. So I, obviously being a military recruiter, I'm a big fan of military candidates, but I just think there are lots of businesses out there that could be missing out by not looking at different profiles. Of course, on the one hand, if you don't try and tap into this talent pool, that leaves more great candidates for me, but I don't mind a bit of healthy competition. So this is a profile of somebody I hired last year. And I asked his permission before I put this up. So he said yes. I'm not going to tell you his name because he's truly excellent and I don't want anybody to poach him. But he is, he left the military after about 16 years, so reasonably senior. He was an officer in the infantry. So no particular skill to hang his hat on. He's not an engineer. He's not an IT manager. He's an infantry officer. Okay. And this is roughly his CV, just the bullet points, which to a lot of you may mean absolutely nothing. He also has a first-class degree in civil engineering. And this is a perfect candidate for me, absolutely perfect. The leadership skills, the soft skills, the analytical, the think outside the box, the deliver results, it's a perfect profile for somebody working in operations. And so I did a phone interview with this individual. And from the minute we started talking, I could tell he was exceptionally special. And that now that I know him a lot more, he's been at the company for sort of 9-10 months, I truly believe that he could turn his hand to anything, literally anything. He was hired in as an operations manager, so reasonably senior position within Amazon, and he was the only external hire into one of our new sites. And 9 months in, and he's already doing temp senior ops manager role. I said to him that, oh, don't forget me when he's, the country director. He is exceptional, and I have got 30 more stories just like him of candidates, 30, 40, 50 more stories of exceptional candidates that are not being picked up by other companies, that are going under the radar, or maybe people are not advertising their roles in the right places. But these candidates are fantastic, and I will happily take all of them. But this individual is a really good example of that. Okay, I could bore you to death with multiple anecdotes about feedback from line managers, about candidates absolutely blowing the roof off interviews with the candidates that we have come through. So really lots and lots of anecdotal data to support military hiring. But also, if I was to do a bit of a dive deep, I could show you the data and the stats on how well they do in the company. Okay, so it may not seem, you may not look at this CV and think, I don't really know what that means, but it was a very well put together CV. Just based on the CV itself, you could tell the individual was intelligent and had something about him. And I would say that's your first that's your first clue that you've got a potential excellent candidate in front of you. And then a quick 30-minute phone call should tell you the rest. And then I wanted to put one other profile up to show a bit of a different profile from the military. And it was honestly just easier to use my own. So this was me. I did 24 months of basic training to get qualified to drive ships. Then did a job as a gunnery officer on HMS Brocklesby, followed by a 15-month Pashto language course, which is a language pretty much unique to Afghanistan and parts of Pakistan. Then I did a job as a cultural specialist within Afghanistan, a role as a caseworker within Navy Legal, working on complaints, service complaints, representations, dismissal from the service. Really interesting role, that one, actually. And then I did a stint in marketing coordinator, organizing film shoots and photo shoots for recruitment, and then finished up in Navy Command as a training capability manager. I don't even know what that makes me as a civilian, if I'm honest. Where does that place me in civilian life? Absolutely no idea. And to be honest, I stumbled across the Amazon role at a military career fair, and they had the UK military recruiter role open, and they were looking for somebody to come in and take over that job from my predecessor. And I applied and was successful. And then 6 months into the role, I then stepped up to lead the team. So I have zero recruitment experience, absolutely nothing. I have had to learn this from scratch. But I don't think it's about the industry experience. Again, I use the word industry experience. I don't have any. I mean, I do now, but I didn't then. But it didn't stop Amazon hiring me, and thankfully it's all turned out all right. I do think that we're being quite successful. And the whole military recruitment team at Amazon, nobody has any recruitment experience. They're all veterans, and still loads of success all across the EU. And it's the same over in North America. If I'm honest, the recruitment team for military is a lot of, quite a few veterans fill those roles as well. So that's my background, and you can see then that it's a scary and daunting situation to be in, to move into a civilian life or look at civilian roles when you really don't know where you sit, based on what your experience is, and without any particular industry experience, where do you go forward? Okay. So let's move on. Looking at the clock. Right. So where do veterans fit in? This is the list of the hires that we have made in Amazon this year. Veterans, either veterans that have had a bit of time in civilian world or people that have transitioned straight from the military. Okay. We take a lot of engineers. They're great. People that can fix warships, can fix helicopters, can fix complex weapons engineering machinery on warships, can fix torpedo tubes and all that sort of good stuff. Radars, electronic chart computers, great engineers. We also take quite a lot of workplace health and safety. A lot of veterans end up with the NEBOSH qualification through their experience in the military, which make them great candidates for health and safety roles. Transportation ops manager, again, really lots of people with backgrounds really suited to those types of roles. IT, another great one. IT managers. Learning and development. There is whole branches of the military dedicated to learning and development, and they do so much of their own training to get their own people up to a really high standard. So that's an option. And then you're obviously the program project manager type roles are really well suited. So this is what we've done this year. I actually need to add another one onto that, risk analyst. We've had a new recent hire recently. And all across Amazon is a very veteran-friendly organization generally. Jeff Bezos said in 2016 that we were going to hire 25,000 veterans within 5 years. I think honestly we've smashed through that target. But in North America there are 200,000 service leavers every year. So there is a massive pool of talent there to sort of fish within. The UK market is slightly smaller, 14,000 service leavers every year. And obviously within that 14,000, you do have to factor in people retiring, people that maybe do a bit of contracting work, and people that may not be educationally suited for your role, geography and location. So they're not all, you're not going to have it's not a whole 14,000 person talent pool. Your talent pool will be a bit smaller than that, depending on what profile you're looking at. But also there's 1.2 million veterans in the UK as well. So that's a bit bigger in terms of talent pool. So that's where they fit in Amazon. And if any of those roles are roles that you have in your companies, then I would say they're definitely options for you too. Okay, so this is the reality though. So this is a piece of work that was developed in collaboration with Forces in Mind Trust and the Officers Association, and it was written by Deloitte. It was coordinated by Deloitte, and it's available online. You can download it and read it. And it's all about looking at veterans in employment and really diving into that as a problem and seeing what people have to say about it and gathering that data together. There's quite a few additional findings from it, but this is the sort of top line. So across the country, 3 in 10 businesses admit they have not even considered employing veterans. While the majority claim to be more open-minded, 60% of businesses rule out recruiting someone if they have no industry-specific experience. We come back to that awful phrase again, industry experience. And there are roughly 700,000 veterans currently in employment, and over half find themselves in routine, low-skilled or low-paid jobs. And this is when these are individuals that could potentially be highly skilled, but they struggle to get that message out there, to get their CV across in the right way, their skills. And so they end up in roles where their skills aren't necessarily a match. And this is the top line of this report. I think it's really interesting because I think the exact figure for how many people, I think it was, 1 second, I do have a note here I just want to refer back to. So 71% of medium and large organizations say they would consider employing veterans, but only 39% say they would employ somebody with no industry experience. So that other 60% is what we're talking about there. Okay. Another interesting point is that many of the skills that veterans possess are in areas where organizations are experiencing gaps. So, for instance, around a third of medium and large organizations surveyed have skills gaps in strategic management, motivating staff, team working, positive attitude, and listening skills. All great skills from the military. And I'm trying to avoid saying the word transferable skills because I think that doesn't sound great. But these are core skills that if you're developed in a person over the course of their military career, you're not going to get that easily elsewhere. So that's just something to think about. Okay. So there's a persistent lack of understanding as well of the key skills that veterans possess. Only 66% of large and medium organizations perceive veterans as having good communication skills, whereas this is actually a key strength highlighted by organizations who have actually employed them. Okay, so there's lots of misconceptions, the lack of understanding. When somebody thinks of a veteran, maybe they think of, you know, a retired person on Remembrance Sunday. There are so many skilled and capable people out there that are looking for the next step in their civilian career that you could be employing with these great skills. Right. Next slide, looking at the time. Okay, so the challenges. This are 2 snippets from 2 CVs. The top one is mine, the bottom one is my friend's. He did give me permission also to share this with you. I would turn this into a little bit of a question and answer session, but I'm well aware that I am quickly running out of time. So the top snippet is mine from my time on HMS Brocklesby when I was gunnery officer, and the bottom half is my friend from his time on the exact same type of ship at the exact same time when he was a gunnery officer. So we joined the Navy together. We did the exact same role on the exact same type of ship at the exact same time, and it's so identical that I could have walked off my ship onto his ship and just picked up without problem. Okay, the same rules, same regulations, same requirements, day-to-day role, pretty much identical. And yet, look at the difference in our CVs and how we've portrayed that role. Completely different. It's phenomenal. In fact, a lot of my colleagues at work, because I use this in my local training in Amazon, prefer the bottom CV, which is my friend's CV, to mine, which is absolutely fine. I take the constructive criticism well. But this is how I didn't know how to, I wouldn't have thought to put it in the bottom version, if I'm honest. I said it as it was and hoped that the person reading it would understand it. So that's the challenge, the CVs, understanding the CVs. And I get that you only spend a couple of seconds looking at each CV, and a military CV is going to require longer than that. But I would say don't reject out of hand. If you think you have the time to maybe push for a phone interview, or to look at it a bit harder, or to push it through to the hiring manager, you've nothing to lose by doing that. Okay. The individual on the bottom half is actually starting work at Amazon within operations in the next couple of weeks as well. I've been mopping up all of my old colleagues from when I was in the Navy. But this is the challenge. And often as well, some of the CVs can be quite poor in terms of this is the first foray into a civilian job in 20 years for some people. They're not always confident in what they should write in their CVs. I do regular CV and interview workshops for veterans to try and sort of hammer home the message on what they should be including, what they shouldn't be including. And interviewing as well, they're a bit rusty on that front also. But it doesn't stop them improving significantly between phone interview and main interview. I see a vast improvement in the performance of the candidate when they really get to grips with what's expected. Okay, so how do you do it? How do you reach the talent pool? I'll go through these quite quickly. There's QR codes here. Hopefully I've got them all matched to the right slide. This is the Career Transition Partnership, and probably the most important one for the UK. They are the MOD's official provider of armed forces resettlement. Okay. If you go onto the website, there is a section for employers, and you can fill it in and submit it. Even if you think your company may have involvement already with the CTP, you can still fill out the form. They will still call you back, and they will say, well, actually, our point of contact is such and such in your organization. Maybe talk to them first or come back. They're quite happy to have a conversation with you, even if you're not sure if other parts of your company are already involved. Okay. The job site is free. There's a microsite you can create inside the CTP site. They'll organize web chats, webinars. You can put case studies up. They have career consultants that help veterans. The career fairs, they do charge for those. They're about £6,000 to £7,000 a year for 8 career fairs. But the ROI that we get from them is worth it in spades. If you compare how much one hire from an agency costs, if you £6,000, £7,000 for the whole year of career fairs, we get a significant amount of hires that come out of those. It's really worth connecting with them. Okay, even if you don't use them a lot, I would say, what have you got to lose again by reaching out and making that connection? And the good thing about the UK market for veterans is they're so active on LinkedIn. They love it. They love LinkedIn, and they really buy into it lock, stock, and two smoking barrels. So definitely, if you connect with the CTP or with myself or a couple of others, you'll expand your veteran network very quickly. Okay. Another one is the Officers Association. This is a charity. They have jobs board. It's not as good as the CTP website, but they are making improvements this year. They're getting a new jobs board active, so hopefully that will be much better. They'll do case studies, webinars, networking events, and they also have career consultants as well. Definitely worth linking in with them. The Forces Employment Charity, another one. They predominantly look at people that have been out of the military for 2+ years, but definitely also worth being on their radar. And the White Ensign Association, I throw that in at the end. It's a smaller charity. It only looks at the Royal Navy and the Royal Marines, but definitely worth anyway, especially for engineers or anybody sort of South Coast, where the 2 main naval bases are. Definitely worth just connecting also. And that is it in a nutshell. I have gone through that really quickly. I think I spoke for longer than the 20 minutes I should have done, because we need time for questions if there are any. And I'm like rabbiting on now. So Natasha, thank you.
Gemma, that was really good. That was really insightful and lots of tips for people. We do have actually quite a number of questions, so I'm going to try and get you to rattle through those quite quickly. And what I am going to do though for you guys, everyone, sorry, I keep on saying guys, I need to stop doing that. But if you could just pop on to slido.com for me and just provide a little bit of feedback. So just pop in the hashtag IHRdiversity on slido.com. So use any internet browser, whatever it is that you choose to do. You can do it on your phone, but you can also listen whilst you're doing that, because it won't take very long. So Gemma, let's try and rattle through these questions, because there's quite a few personal ones. So how have you encouraged hiring managers, and Amazon seems quite well structured, but how have you encouraged hiring managers to think outside of industry experience?
That's a really good question, and I think I don't think it's something that happens overnight. I think it happens when they see it in the flesh and they see a great candidate in front of them, and then they can see it for themselves. I think it is hard to hypothetically to try and explain it to a hiring manager, but I think they're not losing much by taking a look at a CV or doing a phone interview. It's not, I don't feel those things are a waste. They are opening people's minds and opportunities and broadening their understanding. So that's all positive anyway. To be honest, in Amazon, it's not so much of a problem because a lot of our hiring managers are ex-military now that we're at that point. So it's fairly straightforward. But the more we hire, the more people see, and the more they see, the more they want to know more. So it's kind of like a ripple effect, and it's kind of like a snowball effect going down a hill. But I do get people now from HR project management reaching out, wanting to look at candidates, and we've had no influence in that area necessarily. So it's kind of like it seeps out like if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, 100%. And Gemma, for yourself, the person that asked the question was called Gemma as well. What you might be able to do is actually maybe have a phone call with them and actually transfer that into a CV that a hiring manager might like in a way, or format it in a way that might be a little bit more anonymized, perhaps. That might be another option.
Or also, it's likely, no matter if you don't have an active veteran hiring program, it's likely you probably do have veterans working for your company. I would certainly be looking at reaching out and sort of doing a bit of a canvas, and who do we have that is from the military, who can sort of loan some advice on CVs, who can maybe do some local training. There will be maybe not in every company, but I would say there'd be people like that you don't realize are previously from the military.
Okay, brilliant. Are you able and willing to share some of the data demonstrating the success of ex-military? And I think for a lot of hiring managers or recruiters, actually, is getting that stakeholder engagement. Actually, they can see results. So if you're able to, perhaps Gemma, it's the same Gemma that asked the question, and perhaps she can reach out to you on LinkedIn and you might be able to share some of the key line figures.
Yeah, no, please do. I'll tell you what, I'll tell you one thing that one statistic, and let's keep it between, us, me and whoever else is listening on this forum, that my team in the UK provide 30% of our main ops hires. So our core managerial positions within the UK, 30% come from the military. So it's and we are looking at trying to track the performance closer as well, but I can see it day to day. I can see it in the feedback and the promotions and the I can physically see it happening week in, week out. But yeah, absolutely, connect with me on LinkedIn and we can have a more in-depth conversation.
Amazing, thank you, Gemma. Okay, next question. How would you go, as probably isn't a quick fire response that you might be able to give, how would you go about creating a process for recruiting veterans for organisations that have never recruited veterans before? Where's the best place to start?
The best place to start is probably with the CTP, the Career Transition Partnership, and they, some veterans, I think the CTP is the gold standard in terms of what they provide veterans in the process of leaving the military, and they are the best place to start because they can offer a lot of guidance, a lot of advice. They're services which are mostly free of charge, so that's definitely the best place to start. And then looking at what roles that you think you have that will be most suited, what you think might work, and then I would just dip your toe in, post on the jobs page, maybe run a virtual event, which, let's face it, at the moment they're really popular, and limited financial absolutely limited financial expenditure on a virtual event, and if nobody shows up to listen, it doesn't matter because it's virtual. So it's I would start little by little with things that aren't going to impact you massively, but you could have small steps to move forward with. But definitely those links I put up in the CTP are great. I love my account manager. She's terrific. I speak to her every 2 weeks, and I can't rate them highly enough as a main contact for veteran hiring.
And also, I mean, you mentioned a lot of IT and tech engineer roles that you've hired in for. I mean, they're hard to find people. It's opening a whole new talent pool. Everyone's got issues with finding tech talent if they're there in the as a veteran. Go and get them.
Oh yeah.
Steal them off Gemma.
Yeah.
I should be saying that.
So we run assessment days for engineers to try and give them a smoother entry point into the business. So we book them together and do the interview panels in a whole day, but then we do make sure they know they need to be open to relocating or different options around the UK. I mean, we're in a very fortunate position that we have 100 different ops buildings spread across the breadth of the UK, so always have options in random places. What I will say is that veterans really enjoy being contacted on LinkedIn. So when you're doing sourcing on LinkedIn, they're very flattered by it. When you do sourcing on LinkedIn, if you, instead of putting the regular companies that you put in to look at, if you put in Royal Navy, RAF, Armed Forces, and then the sort of engineering keywords or Boolean that includes all of that, I think you'd be really surprised at what's on there. And who you can come across from the military, definitely.
Yeah, brilliant. And it was a question I'd actually written down and someone else has asked it as well. Do you need military experience to hire a veteran? So someone like yourself, obviously you know what all the terminology is, and I'm sure it is quite different across different armed forces, but do you think that does it help, or can anyone hire a veteran?
It does help. There's no doubt about that. It does, because I understand the experience, the rank structure, what that rank means in terms of what they've done. So there's no doubt that it helps. But that's not to say you can't be successful without that specific experience. I think you can. I think it's a bit trickier and a bit harder. But I do believe that if you are, it's a process, isn't it? It's a gradual process. If it's so you're new to something, you're going to have to learn a lot about it. But we've had people do my job before that weren't military and they did it well. So it's just being it's being open to learn. You need to be open to really be a sponge and suck up all the information. But our industry recruiters, so we have 3 streams within ops. We've got my stream, military, we've got graduate stream, and we've got an industry stream. Obviously the graduates come in through sort of graduate entry point, and the military and industry come in sort of on a par. And the industry guys, if a military candidate applies to their recs, they're not going to turn them away. They process them just the same. You know, they're not going to turn away a good candidate, and they have learned that. They have learned what that profile looks like, and none of them have military experience, but a lot of success with pulling in that talent into the business. Yeah, but it's being open, I guess.
Yeah,
is what I would say.
Right, final question. We have got a couple of others, but final question, it's quite an interesting one, is could I ask why you avoid saying transferable skills? And I think across recruiters in general, we do use that phrase a lot. I say we, I'm not a recruiter, but it does get used a lot. So Deborah is just quite interested in how it might be perceived and why you don't use it.
I had a very senior person from a very successful business tell me that he hated it, that it sounded like that it was a terrible way to explain your skills, that they're transferable. From what are you transferring them from and to? I just think it's your skills. They're just your skills. I don't know. I just really I dislike it, but I'd probably dislike it based on the fact that very senior person really didn't want to hear about transferable skills. He wanted to hear what you were able to do in the role, what you could provide him, what you could deliver. And going in saying, well, I've got all these transferable skills, it just seems a bit, it can come across, I think, as a bit woolly, I guess is the word I'm looking for, and not as tangible and not as solid. If you say, oh, it makes it look like you don't necessarily have the skills for the job you're applying for. Potentially, that's just my take. But they use it, and veterans do say it, and they do use it, but I'm just not the biggest fan of it.
So it's more of a personal preference. It's not all veterans have got a thing.
No, that's just me. That's just my own thoughts.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Gemma, that was a brilliant session. Lots of questions, lots of